Hey guys, welcome back to Man Time. Today's episode we are going to try to revive this old 74 CJ5 Jeep rock crawler. Little history on the vehicle. This was one of the first vehicles that I purchased with my own money, outright, no help, no cosigner, no nothing, fresh out of high school, and had a decent job. Already had a car that I had paid for, and so it was paid off. I was out living on my own, and decided I needed a recreational vehicle to something to go up in the hills and play with and have some fun with other buddies that had rock crawlers and trucks and stuff that they were working on. Typically they were Toyotas though, but this came up super cheap, and it ran like garbage. I mean, I could barely drive it off of the lot. Had a single barrel carb. I've since upgraded it to a 4-barrel Offenhauser intake, header exhaust, and custom exhaust on there. Came with originally a 3-speed transmission. I upgraded that to a 4-speed Borg-Warner T18A, which has got a super low unsynchronized first gear for rock crawling. Cut the frame, extended it, Dana 44s, fully locked, front and rear, and what else? Tube cage. Took the crusty, rusty body off. That was always fun, rock crawling and getting off camber, and then the body would flex and your clutch linkage would fall out onto the ground. So I only did that so many times. I tried to beef up the body at one point, and then finally at some point during college decided that I was just going to tear the body off of it. And start with just tube, and that's kind of where I went. So it's been sitting up for probably 5 years. So thinking about this, what tools we'll need to get it from a non-running 5-year sat vehicle to a fully functional vehicle. You want to bring all the tools you think you'll need and all the tools that you don't think you'll need. I tried to rebuild an engine on that old Caterpillar out in the woods several years ago, like probably 10 years ago. And man, I brought a generator, compressor, air tools, hand tools, everything you could possibly think of, and it still wasn't enough. So anyways, let's think about what is going to be wrong with the vehicle that's been sitting for 5 years. Number one, the fuel is going to be varnished up. So we need to get that old fuel out of there. So we're going to need to bring an empty gas can that we're going to put that waste fuel, and a full gas can so we can get good fuel in there. Fuel additives, always a plus, like Seafoam, Marvel Mystery Oil, stuff like that we can be putting in that engine to get things kind of loosened up down into the pistons, inside the intake. We just need to check to see if the motor is actually turning over, so we'll grab the front of that crank with a wrench, turn that over, get that old fuel out of there, make sure that the fuel pump is still going to be operational, new battery, yeah. So let's just jump into it and get our tools set up, get our work area set up, think about the workflow. Bring a little table to set all your tools out and be organized, and have that at the point of use, the centroid of where you're going to be working at. And yeah, that's it. Let's jump into it. Welcome to Man Time. I think I've got everything here, from big pry bars to a engineer's hammer, to my penetrating oil, lubricants, grease gun to grease up some zerks here, get everything kind of moving around. Of course, Seafoam, wrenches, the big heavy-duty American-made crescent wrench. But what else? Oh yeah, really important, man, when you're out here and you're whether you're out on your property somewhere, somebody else's property. A couple of the main ingredients to a good work day is clean hands. And there's nothing more refreshing after being just covered in grease, greasy hands, to be able to spray down with some Simple Green, pour some water over your hands, clean off, clean your face. Oh, it's like a new life has been given to you. So, super important. So we are going to start with the fuel. We're going to trace the fuel line from the carburetor back to the fuel pump and get that line off of the carb. Then we've got a new battery. We're going to hook that up. We're going to see if the fuel pump is on and running. And if it is, then we're going to pump out all of the old fuel that's in there. Add fresh fuel. And so if the fuel pump isn't working, we've got some wire. We've got some wire nuts. We've got a wire stripper. Because you're going to have, fuel is going to be the main issue, but electronics are going to be a whole nother issue. So you want to have stuff to be able to fix those electronics as well. So you can jumper things and figure out where the electronics are going. Multimeter, also a necessary tool here, because you don't know what's going to be eaten through or worn out or corroded or whatever. So we'll just start by kind of going over the vehicle, spraying down with some PV Blaster, hooking up that new battery, getting the air filter off of there, spraying some of this down there, and then putting some stuff down the plugs and trying to crank over the engine. And we'll just jump into it here. Alright guys, moment of truth here. I've got the fuel line disconnected from the carburetor. I've got an electric fuel pump right down here. I've got a fresh battery on, and so we're gonna see. It'd be bad if that shoots out of there, wouldn't it? There we go. Alright, we're gonna see if the fuel pump will kick on. If there's even any fuel in it. There may not be. It may just be bone dry. I don't know. We'll find out here though. But we'll turn the key on to accessory where the fuel pump would typically kick on, and see if there's any fuel pumping or if that fuel pump is working. So listen close. Okay, so so the fuel pump's working. That's the sound of a dry fuel pump, though. There's an inline fuel filter right here that is bone dry as well. So what we can do here is feed in some fresh fuel into that fuel pump and get it primed, and then hook it back up to the line and see if there's anything in the tank. Alright, let's try that. One nice thing about this thing being a rock crawler is things like the fuel tank here are really easy to get to. So we can do a little bit of investigative work here. Man, it feels like there's fuel in there. It may just be kind of gunked up. So I'm going to pour down into the tank here a little bit of fresh fuel, and another way we can prime that pump is just to just to, I know it sounds gross, but put your mouth right on the fuel filler and blow, and that'll create that pressure in there, and it'll help push that fuel up to that fuel pump. Had to do that several times on my lawnmower. When I run that thing out of gas, to get that fuel pump reprimed, just put your lips right over it, start blowing, build up some pressure in there until that fuel gets up to the pump, and then boom, you're off and running. So we'll pour some fresh fuel down in here, and with a lot of seafoam, we'll put some seafoam in there as well, and that'll help kind of clear things out, and then just blow on it. Yeah, that's liquid going on top of liquid there. There we go. We primed it. Yep, we had it primed. Okay, so that was working. Turning on the key to accessory, getting that fuel pump. Luckily, the fuel pump was actually working. Blowing down into the filler neck for the fuel tank. That built up the pressure in there, and that pushed the gas up. And it was pretty dark and varnishy looking. So we'll just continue that process, getting that old gas out of there. It must be just down. I mean, it must be almost out. So pouring that seafoam in there, a little bit of gas, getting that kind of starting to break down that varnish is going to be a good thing. We'll leave that sit, and we'll come back to it. We'll start now going through some of the other parts of it. This is a Holley carburetor. It's got little fuel level holes and screws in the sides of it. So we'll pop those off of there, and we'll get some like Marvel Mystery Oil or PB Blaster or both down in there, and so that carburetor can start getting the varnish broken down as well. Alright, so either side of this Holley carburetor has got screws right here in the front of it, and these are going to be super stuck in there. Whew, got it. Alright, other side. Okay, got them. Yeah, it's these little things right here, and that is going to allow us to get penetrating oil down into that carburetor, into those bowls. All right. Yeah, I always cringe when I see somebody just dump gas down into a carburetor and hope for the best. Hope is not a solution for mechanical equipment. There is a specific process and a designed fixing method. Hope is not a solution when you're working on a car. So by spraying that penetrating oil down in there, that's going to start freeing up all that varnish, breaking it down. And then by having the seafoam in the fresh gas that's coming into the carburetor, it's going to further break down. So it might run like crap initially, and eventually that varnish is going to break down, and it's going to run a lot better. Whew, it's getting hot. Alright, now that we've got the fuel system kind of where we think it should be, with penetrating oil, seafoam, stuff that breaks down the varnish, both in the carb and in the gas tank, and now running through the fuel pump. Let's just go ahead and see. We'll put a wrench on the front of that crank and rotate it and see if the pistons are free. So let's try that. Haha, and the movement. I'll put a ratchet wrench on there just to let you hear it. Yeah, you can put a crescent wrench on something, get your size, and then grab the right ratcheting wrench just by measuring first. All right, here we go. Let's see here, 3/4 blue point. Well, a little bit of resistance there, but spinning over free. So now the question is, since the motor's spinning over, do we still take the plugs out and pour some Mr. Oil down there? Tough one. I added some more gas and seafoam and Marvel Mr. Oil into the fuel tank. And one thing we can do here to get that mixed up and in with that varnish is to shake it up a little bit. Alright, I was wondering why it wasn't staying primed there, and it looks like the fuel line here where it attaches to the fuel tank bung is cracked. So as I was blowing down into there, it was forcing the fuel up, but it was losing that prime to the fuel pump because there's a hole right here in the fuel line. So we'll get that fixed up. Right here is our problem. Sure is nice to have a rock crawler where you can just pull things off and yeah, right there, nice big hole. Okay, so that's easy. We're staying primed. All right, look at how filthy this gas is here. That is yellowy varnish nasty. But there is good clean gas mixed in there and a lot of Marvel Mr. Oil and seafoam. So we'll just let that pump out of there till it's dry, add fresh gas, and then hook it back up to the carb. See if something semi-clear starts coming out. There we go. That's some fresh gas. Alright guys, it is the moment of truth. Is the solenoid going to actually engage the starter? We've got all of the old gas drained out of there. Fresh gas in there now. Got PB Blaster down in the bowls here for a few hours while we were doing everything else. Motor's free. Got all my plug wires back on. Got a fresh battery. Whew. I think we're there. It's either, as they say, it's nut up or shut up time, right? Let's try it. Say what now? Starter works. Wanting to die there a little bit. I may have to adjust the idle a little bit up until I get some of that varnish and fresh gas running through there. Alright guys, that is how to restore, refurb, save, salvage, bring back to life. I don't know exactly what you call it, but taking an old vehicle, been sitting for 5 years, varnishing the gas tank and you know, varnished gasoline. So that's the process there. You saw it. It works. I mean, like I was saying, hope is not a solution. Going through all of these steps that you need to do, what I just did there, to get good fuel to the carb, get all of the varnish kind of worked out of the carb, turning over the engine, using the penetrating oil, using the fuel additives. All that stuff is what makes a successful restoration project, I guess. But you could hear there, she is fully awake and ready to run now. So that's going to do it for today on Man Time, guys. Thanks for joining me. Thumbs up, subscribe. If you like these type of videos and want me to keep making them, let's make it happen. Thanks for joining me. Get out there, have you some man time too.